Hello.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Eduardo Boechat. Eduardo earned a PhD at the Royal Holloway in London, and now he works at Federal University of Rio. He is the most important researcher in Poseidonians in the world. Dear Eduardo, thanks for
Hold on.
coming. I will now hand it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, people. Of course, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aldo. Yeah, but please don't over one of the most reputed scholars on Posidonius in the world. Not the top one of them. So hello, people. Hi everyone. So I'll introduce me. My name is Eduardo Boechat. I nowadays I work in the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, but I've done my graduate studies in the University of London. So I've done my MA, which was in UCL, and my PhD was in Royal Holloway, University of London. And my thesis was about Posidonius as philosophical background of Manilius Astronomica. It was Manilius Astronomica. For those who doesn't know it, is the first tri- astrological treatise of the West, a whole treatise on astrology. And my thesis was about the Posidonius as source of Manilius. Yeah, but we don't not going to talk about. Of course, there's something to do with astrology today, because what I'm going to do today is somehow to show that, like, there were arguments supporting the thesis that the Earth was a very center of the world, or at least a very center of what we know as our solar system. So that's why the title, Fragment 18, Edelstein Kid, like there's a Posidonian fragment, or why the Earth does stand still. So there's arguments for the thesis, for the geocentric thesis, that the Earth is real in the center of our solar system. So let's stop. Yeah, let's stop. Let's. Uh, I don't know. Uh, just a query. Uh, Aldo, can I? How can I? How can I use my PowerPoint? Can I
Put,
use my PowerPoint?
yeah, do you see the square with a plus sign below? Click on it.
It's called it's share. Say share,
Yeah,
compartilhar.
yeah. Then slides, and then you select the
Slides.
yeah,
Is it?
yeah. Then you select. You can up, upload it.
It's it says the compartilhar thing, the share thing. That's the one.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Then
compartilhar tela or what?
no,
Slides.
seu computador, down there. Compartilhar, then slides, then seu computador.
Ah, cool. Seu computador, cool.
Yeah. Then you upload it.
Vamos ver.
Oh yeah, I have it here. You already sent me. Sorry.
Yeah. So fine.
So it's here. Sorry.
Ah. So yeah. So all right. I'll tell you when to move. It's going to work like that, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I'm following you.
I'll tell you when to move. Yeah. So yeah. So that's the title. Why the Earth does stand still. So the arguments. So yeah, philosophical arguments like supporting the thesis that the Earth does stand still, or like why Posidonius thought it's basically is the content of fragment 18. Is that there's the most famous fragment of, it's one of the most famous fragments of Posidonius. So why? Yeah. So anyway, let's go to the text. So Aldo, please, the next one. So let's now so let's a brief context of this fragment. Is as I said, is the most famous, is the most famous fragment of Posidonius. Why is the most famous? Because here we have two very interesting ideas. First one, we have like a top philosopher, like a scientist philosopher. It's not any philosopher. It's a scientist philosopher. Is the most scientific of the Stoics, or Posidonius, defending the thesis showing why the philosopher was more knowledgeable than the scientist, or why the scientist should in the like should like sort of follow the philosopher. So something like the philosopher is on the top of the scientist, like he's the scientist should follow the philosopher, and not the other way around. So that's why people really like this fragment for this reason. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is that then we have sort of another philosopher, or at least an author, a famous author, defending defending the heliocentric theory. We have Heraclitus Ponticus defending the heliocentric theory. So it's very famous for these two reasons, and everybody who's like many like very important philosophers who wrote about this fragment, like people like Giles, people like Wilhelmowitz, and Jaeger, of course, and of course Kidd, Reinhardt, like everybody said something about this fragment. And then so let's go to the fragment. No, just return it. Don't move. Yeah, stay there. Yeah, no, the first one. Yeah, that's it. This one. Now, so I'm going to read it briefly. So now astronomers, so now he's going to distinguish both roles, the role of the astronomer, or the scientist, and the role of the natural philosopher, or the philosopher. So now astronomers and philosophers will in many cases propose to demonstrate essentially the same thesis, or that the sun is large, that the earth is spherical. So both as scientists and philosophers, they demonstrate the same thesis. Yet they will not follow the same procedure. Whereas natural philosophers will make each of their demonstrations on the basis of substance. So the natural philosopher defends his thesis on the basis of substance, of powers or principles, or that is better to be thus, or the processes of coming into existence and change. So that's how the philosopher will defend his thesis. In the other way, the astronomers or the scientists will do so on the basis of properties incidental to shapes or magnitudes, or say it means extrinsical properties, so like formal properties, or like base of properties incidental to shapes and magnitudes, or on the basis of the quantity of the movement and the time interval appropriate to it. Also, so it means formal, so formal arguments, whereas the astronomer the philosopher will use philosophic sort of principles, or things like substance, principle, powers coming to be and fading away. Like the astronomer will prove the same thing, but just with formal arguments. So the natural philosophy will in many cases deal with the cause, so causes as well. The philosopher will deal with causes by focusing on the causative power, whereas the astronomer, i.e., the scientists, when they make their demonstrations on the basis of extrinsic, incidental properties, it means formal properties, have no adequate insight into cause. For example, claiming that the Earth or the heavenly bodies are spherical, so they just show that the Earth is spherical. Sometimes they do not aim to comprehend the cause, as when discussed on an eclipse. Next one, Aldo, please. So it follows on. On other occasions, astronomers make demonstrations in accordance with an hypothesis by setting some modes as explanation. I'll just go through, and we'll have to go through all the modes according to which these phenomena can be caused, so that our systematic treatment of the planets will resemble a theory of causes according to each possible mode explanation. So it means that the astronomers, they can have very different modes of explanation. They like they don't follow a sort of a linear causative power. They can appeal to different modes of explanation, whereas the philosopher will always follow one causative power, one linear sort of what calls for the demonstrative linear causative linear chain of causes, né? So that's it. And the last paragraph. So that's why a certain Heracles of Pontus actually came forward to say that the apparent motion of the sun can't be saved when if the earth somehow moves. So now that's the heliocentric theory. Heracles Pontus, just by following the sort of the astronomer or the scientist way of thinking, he tried to show that the Earth somehow moves while the sun somehow remains stationary. It means a heliocentric theory. The Heracles Pontus is defending a heliocentric theory according to a sort of scientist or astronomer way of thinking, way of demonstration. So, for in general, astronomers do not have knowledge of what is by nature at rest and what sort of things are moved. So, they don't count on sort of elemental motion, like what moves and what's at rest. I mean, sort of physical or cosmological motion. Instead, by introducing hypotheses of some things being stationary, others in motion, so just by hypothesis, some things are stationary, others are in motion. They investigate which hypothesis will follow from the phenomena in the heavens. But so they just follow hypotheses. They don't have a linear chain of causation. But astronomers have to take at first principles from natural phenomena. So the role of the astronomer, of the scientist, is to obey, to follow the philosopher and adapt and take the principles from the philosopher. As that so what are the principles? That the motion of the heavenly bodies are simple, smooth, and orderly, and through these principles they will demonstrate that the choral dance of the bodies is circular, with some revolving in parallel circles, other in oblique circles. So what's said here is basically that the natural scientists will just follow uh, formal causes or extrinsic properties. They don't have principles. So they can follow that. They can take many different hypotheses and try to, like, just to what save the famous save the appearances by different hypotheses, whereas the philosopher has a linear chain of causation. So he follows a nexus of causation, and always start with these first principles. This first principle is the very thing that the astronomers they don't have, the scientists don't have, and the philosophers they have it. So that's why, in the end of the day, I'm going. That's the very point. That's the very point. Like these first principles, what in metaphysics too, Aristotle proves that that's the very big difference between the scientist and the philosopher. It means that the science they don't have first principles. What I'm saying is, science nowadays they don't have very first principles. If Aristotle came like came to one of these great centers of natural science nowadays, he would ask, well, what are your first principles? So if you don't have, you don't do proper science. Why? Because there's always an eternal regress. What's eternal? Things like that. Oh, how the world started, or with the Big Bang. So Aristotle would ask, and what came before the Big Bang? And they would say, well, no, we don't have answer for that. Sorry, you are wrong, because you don't have first principles. There's a big difference between philosophy and science. Science not only that time, science nowadays they don't have first principles. There's always an eternal regress. So for instance, Darwinism is it's always there's always an eternal regress. They don't have answer for question. And what came before that? What came before the Homo sapiens? What came before the Big Bang? Yeah, science nowadays they don't have principles. They don't have the first principle. This is the basic difference between philosophy and science. Aldo, next one, please. And Posidonius, of course, he knew that. He knew that. He was not just a scientist. He was a philosopher. Now, our great Aristotle, of course, he wrote something and did something else. Yes, and people criticized him because he knew that he had to follow first principles, but he didn't by in the Decailo, on the heavens. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. And people like Xenarchus, people like Adrastus of Aphrodisias, Aphrodisias, they criticized him for. So in this slide we have Xenarchus criticizing Aristotle. Criticize what? The fifth element. So finally, in this connection, Xenarchus in against the fifth substance. What's the fifth substance? The ether, of course. Né? Complains that while talking about natural things, the Aristotelians give mathematical demonstrations. Yeah, so they give abundant formal arguments, extrinsic arguments, mathematical arguments for cosmology. Since we have used kinds of lines, so you have to the ether is proved on the basis of, because there's only two movements, the circular movement and the vertical movement. Since we have used kinds of lines, we make the causes of the simple motions depend on simple lines. So yeah, So that and that's the proof. For he says that the helix drawn on a cylinder is also a simple line. So there's only not two simple lines. There's not only the vertical line and the circular line. There's always the helix line. So why Aristotle didn't use the helix line as well? So all these things is for what? Criticizing the iter, the circular movement of the iter. So what Xenarchus, Adrastus, Aphrodite as well, many and other people as well. I can't remember, and yeah, but so Xenarchus, Adrastus, Aphrodite criticize Aristotle because in the Cairo he doesn't use this like the sort of natural what the sort of natural the causative power, the physical, like the physical properties, the natural properties to substantiate their theory. Good. Carry on, Aldo, please. So now we get into the heart of Aristotle. Yes, to get into the heart of Aristotle. He's always in denial. Yeah, that guy is always in denial. The whole physics and metaphysics, he's always in the whole thing in denial. Right? He knows who is right. He knows who is right, but he's always avoiding avoiding his source. He's always avoiding his source. What is his source? His source is the Pythagoreans, of course. The very first paragraph of physics once is Pythagorean. It's really Pythagorean. Right? People know that. Who know that? Kramer knew that. Pines knew that. Merlin knew that. All right, these new people, they avoid, they try to ignore these scholars. Né? Like Bolton, great scholars, Bolton, Hankinson, Julianas. They try to ignore it, but it's there. It's there, and like you can't ignore it. So what I'm saying is, in the very first paragraph of the physics, Aristotle, he shows what he does. He shows that the very basic principles are the parts. Yes, substance are parts, are not wholes. Like I'm repeating, Merlin, Pines, Kramer, they all knew that. They all wrote about that. So I'm going to read this passage now. The natural causes proceed from what's clear and more known to us to what's more noble and clear by nature. So the real thing is by nature. The real thing is by nature. Just the perceptible thing, it comes like it's just a propedeutic. It's just the first step, but the real thing is by nature. For the two are not the same. Hence, we must start thus with things which are less clear by nature, or what's perceptible, but clear to us, and move on to things which are by nature clear and more knowable. What the real substance which by nature is clear and more knowable. The things which are in the first instance clear and plain to us are rather those which are compounded, are the whole, the compounded. It's only later, through an analysis of these, that we come to know elements and principles. The real thing, the real substance are elements and principles. That's why we should proceed from the universal to the particular. The universal is just the first step. The particular is the real thing. It's the whole which is more known by perception. So the first step is the perception of the whole and the universal. And the universal is a sort of the part. But the real thing, what's the real thing? The real thing, it's the parts. It embraces many things, the whole. embraces many things as parts. So anyway, olha, Pines again. Kramer, you don't go like you if you read Bolton, he not going to say about it. He's not going to mention this thing. He's going to say that everybody says since Philoponus, everybody says there's a great contradiction there. What's the contradiction? The contradiction is that the substance is presented as a part. The principles are a part. The universal, the whole, it comes a posteriori. A priori, by substance, by nature, is the part. Now, this idea, it returns exactly like on the on the first paragraph on the first paragraph of no, the first chapter of the second book. It's exactly where the Poseidonian fragment is found in Simplicius. The Poseidon that fragment at the fragment 18 is found exactly at this point in Simplicius, when Simplicius is commenting this first chapter of the second book of the Physics. So some things are due to nature. For others, there are other causes of the former sort are animals and their parts, plants, and simple bodies like earth, fire. These are nature. What are the nature? Animals and their parts, plants, simple bodies, or the elements. For say that these things like them are due to nature. All these things plainly differ from things which are not constituted naturally. Each has itself a source of change and staying unchanged, whether in respect of place, of growth and decay, or alteration. So I put it that the second this second passage here, the first chapter of the second book, because it's exactly where we find the Poseidonian fragment in Simplicius. So that fragment we read like just before, it's just exactly when Aristotle is establishing that natural things or organic things, they have this. When you are studying, when you study organic things, when you study natural things, you have to take into consideration two principles. What are the principles? Like these are the formal principle and the material principle. So, but the material principle is as important as the material principle is as important as a formal principle. That's the whole. This is the whole content of the whole content of the Poseidonian fragment. The Poseidonian fragment is the content is the problem with the scientists is they just take the formal principle into consideration, but it's not enough. You have always to take the material principle into consideration. But what is the material principle? The material principle are the elements, how the elements behave. It doesn't care like what so the perception says, something like that. Doesn't matter what the perception says. What extrinsic properties, like yeah, the kinematic properties, what they show you. Of course, it's important, but as important as the kinematic properties, the elemental properties are important. So we have to take into consideration both principles, and the scientists and the astronomers just take formal principles into consideration. So that whole fragment is just about that, and Aristotle knew that. but he's avoiding it all. His whole career is about avoiding the material principle. He just takes into consideration the formal principle. But it's a long story. I'm not going to talk about it now. You just have to trust me. Next slide, Aldo. Good. Well done. Now we are back to our hero, Posidonius. Now, the relationship between Aristotle and Posidonius X3 is really there because he is the Aristotelian. He is the Aristotelian among the Stoics. He is the Aristotelian among the Stoics. But he's Aristotle. Is the Aristotle of the first century BC. Is the Aristotle of the categories. Is the Aristotle of matter as substance. Is Aristotle of the ultimate ultimate level of predication is the substance of category 5, categories chapter 5, where the parts are substance. So that's what here. And it's not only him, like Antioch of Ascalon. If you read it, they always fought. All these people from this generation, or Boethus of Sidon as well, they thought that Aristotle was a Platonic, more than a Platonic. Aristotle was a Pythagorean Platonic. He was with Speusippus and with Xenocrates. All right, but let's not get into this story now. What we have to believe, what I have to read here is the very Posidonian fragment, where Posidonius defends the thesis, defends a Pythagorean thesis. First, he defends the substance is number. Second, he defends that the part is substance. I'm going to read it. Substance does not admit of increase or diminution by addition. I've been writing for this. I've been writing an article about this fragment for the last 5 years. I haven't finished it yet, but I promise I'm going to finish this year. Like this year, I mean 2022. Either I finish it now or never. It's something like that. So substance does not admit of increase or diminution by addition or subtraction, but only of alteration, as it happens with number and measure. Which number and measure is this one? It's the non-associable numbers, the formal numbers, the numbers that do not admit increase or diminution. Which number does not admit increase or diminution? By addition or subtraction. Of course, the formal numbers, the eidetic numbers, the non-associable numbers, the numbers, the famous countable numbers or numbered groups of Aristotle talks about them all the time. So increase and diminution occurs in peculiar qualified individuals, like John. Therefore, in peculiar, let's read this bit is important. In peculiar qualified individuals, people like me, I'm a peculiar qualified individual. He says there are two receptive parts. Two parts. What are these parts? The principles, of course. These are the parts, are the principles, formal and material principle. I'm going to read it. In respect to the substance hypostasis of the being of substance, of substance, the limited principle, and the qualified thing, the unlimited principle. The qualified thing, poio, is Ozian poio. Where does it turn up? Of course, it's in the categories. Categories, it's the two principles are substance and poion. So this is just reiterating what he read in Aristotle, the categories. The categories. It's the letter or the poion or the material principle, as we have often said, that admits increase and diminution. Like Eduardo, my matter is increasing and diminution all the time. I just had a lunch, so I increase it. Then now, yeah. So I'm going to the toilet later. I'm going to decrease. Sorry about this, my days. It works like that. Uh, so the same peculiar qualified thing, the idiopoios, is not the same as the substance from which it is made. The substance is an element, is a part, is an element. This is Pythagorean. This is not Platonic. Is this the substance is not abstract. It's elemental. It's material. It's from which things are made. Is everything this is in my article, né? Nor on the hand, nor on the other hand, is it different from it, but it's all the same in that substance is a part. No, substance is not whole. When Zeno would say that, when Chrysippus would say that substance is a part, never. They will never say that. Of course, they belong to teleology, especially Chrysippus. The whole career of the whole stoic system of Chrysippus, of the great Chrysippus, I really admire that guy, is based on the whole, is based on teleology, on the telos. He'll never say the substance is apart. This is a Pythagorean thing. This is a Posidonian thing. And that's the real, this is the very first philosophy, the true philosophy. That's Aristotle. It's denying all the time. And that's why the earth is in the center of the world, and I'm going to show you now. And occupies the same place as it. Now, let's say, so what he say here is just presenting what he's presenting. There are two principles. Let's say the limited and the limited, or form and matter, or the even or the odd, and you carry on. And here is ousia and poion. I repeat, the very same principles of the categories. Go there, the beginning of the categories. You see ousia and you see poion. But and on the top, like the substantial, the formal principle of God is number. Is number. The limited principle is number. The odd is number. And the even, the limited, the material is matter. Is matter. Is poion. And they are both parts. The part is substance. The part is prior to the whole. The part is prior to the whole. The species is prior to the genus. Yeah, it's something like that. Anyway, I just showed here that the part that Posidonius is defending a philosophy where the principle is number and the principle is a part, and the substance is a part. Aldo, please, next one. Now, this is the long one. I'm just going to read it. This is about the cosmological fragment. Cosmological fragment in cosmological fragment of Posidonius, which is also found in Simplicius. I wrote an article which was published in the Ancient Philosophy, that reputed journal of the United States, Ancient Philosophy. It was just about this article where I defend the idea. I show that Posidonius adopt a sort of Aristotelian cosmology into Stoicism. Now, what's important here is that the elements, first, they follow absolute directions. They follow absolute directions in the world, in the universe. So fire. So what's fire? Goes to fire, goes to the up, and when it gets there, it rotates. Air follows fire. These are the formal elements. They are light and they are hot. And at the bottom, there's water who goes down and goes down into direction of Earth, which the very bottom, but the very bottom gives shape to water. So what says here is that Earth is a formal element. Can you believe that? Where would you find it? The Earth is a formal element. Of course, you wouldn't find it in the Stoics, and you wouldn't find it Aristotle either. You find it where in that cosmology where the four elements are alive. Where you find it? Of course, in the Natura Deorum, book 2, chapter 23. The famous hit theory of Reinhardt, where the four elements are alive. Because why the four elements are alive? Because the part is prior to the whole. Yeah, the part is prior to the whole. The element, it has its own life. It's a part, it's a substance. It's the element. It's more substance than the whole. The element is more substance than the universe. So the part is prior to the whole. The element is alive. All the elements are alive. And they follow, they have what's said here, and they have this trajectory. The fire goes to the top and rotates. Air follows it and stays in the atmosphere. Then water goes down, and Earth, of course, goes down as well. But so these are the elemental properties. These four properties, these are natural properties. These are the material principle. This is the material substantial principle. They are undeniable. You can't ignore it. They are as important as any kinematic principle. That's why the Earth is in the very center of our solar system, because according to the elemental properties, Earth is in the very center of our system. Anyway, people would say, "Oh, solar, right?" Poseidon was mental. Of course, he was against. He was against everything we know since Copernicus about the solar system, because of course, obviously, the sun is in the center of solar system. Né? All right. Now, the genius of Posidonius, well done, Paul. The genius of Posidonius is that he takes in consideration both principles. You have to take in consideration next one. You have to take into consideration both principles, both the formal principle, where according to which the sun is the kinematic principle, what you see with the telescope, what you see like the kinematic properties of the trajectory of the planets, of the stars. But it's not only this thing. You have also take the elemental properties, the elemental principle, the material principle. Like the fact that the Earth is in the very center. It doesn't matter what you see. The Earth is in the very center because it's the material thing, and like it has to do with with Posidonius' ethics as well, like the psychology as well. Like that's irrational. The world is irrational as well. Like so. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about this. So what you see. So what the point is, what you see in this very time, it means the first half of the first half of the first century BC is this sort of cosmologies where you have two centers. You have, of course, Earth is the center, is sort of carries on as a center of the solar system of our world. But also you see from the Cicero Natura de Oro and the Somnius Scipionis, you see the sun as a very center of the space. The sun is a very center of the superlunar, what they call the superlunar space. What happens after the moon. So here you said, take first. This is the Natura de Oro. Take first of all the sun, which is the command center of the celestial bodies. Principatum é o principal. Principatum Astrorium. Astrorum Principatum is the principle of the asters, is the principle of the superlunar space. So here I establish that the sun, so, and then also the sun by one time slightly approaching and at another time slightly receding causes a moderate variation of temperature. So the sun controls the temperature. The sun has the power of everything. Is the heliopantocratic. Né? The sun controls everything was made by the sun. It starts here in the Natura de Oro. Claro, of course, it's a Poseidonian theory. Anyway, Tyler considers this. Kidd doesn't consider, but Tyler considers this fragment as a Poseidonian fragment. And also, you see, so in the Somnius Scipionis, né? Solis via e motus helicorum, o Sol moderates the movement of the other stars. Say, this is nearly quasi-scientific theory. The sun controls the movement of the stars. Né? Then you go to the astrological book. Next slide, please, Aldo. So the Astronomica, I'm an expert in Astronomica, né? Everybody knows that Astronomica was the source of Astronomicus Posidonius. In the Astronomica, my friends, what you see a scientific theory about a cosmological scientific theory. Yeah, it's like that. This is the cutting edge of science of that time, astrology, astronomy, astrology. So this is the doxography about comets, né? So doxography about comets. What are the comets? Or perhaps in those torches, nature has created, or those torches are the comets. Nature has created dim stars that shine in heaven with meager flames, but the sun, with its swift radiation, radioactivity, sweet Heart Aristotle, radioactivity waves attracts the blazing comets to itself. Like, this is a natural philosophy. This is a scientific theory. The sun with radioactivity controls the blazing comets to itself, absorbs them in its own fire, and then he leaves them. The sun, the force of the sun, the radioactivity, the radiation power of the sun controls the comets in the same way, just like so do the orb of Mercury and the planet of Venus. The sun controls Mercury, the sun controls Venus. He's in the very center of the solar system. He's the very center. All so the planet, the sun controls. That's what we have nowadays. The sun controls the movement of the planets. It's not only in the astronomical. You see also that in the Pliny the Elder, in Vitruvius as well. Like, this is a nearly a scientific theory with the sun in the very center of our solar system. But the point is, you have then two centers. You have the sun as the solar center, or the sun as a spatial center, controlling all the stars apart from Earth, and in the very center of the solar system, you have Earth. It's something like that. all right. Earth is it's like something he's following the elemental theory because the fire goes up, the earth goes down. So there's something like that. The 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 sun rotates around Earth, but around the sun, all the planets rotate. He controls the planets. Next slide, please, Aldo. So now you start understanding. Now I start understanding a sort of cosmobiological theory supporting the thesis that the Earth is in the very center of our world. Our world, i.e., our solar system, something like that. Our old for them is our solar system. Where you read it? Cleomedes. Cleomedes was heavily influenced by by Posidonius. Yeah? I'm not there. I'm not going to prove it now, but it's fine. Like everybody. So Todd wrote about that. Robert Todd wrote about that. Like that, he wrote about the Cleomedes Kailash, and he shows that. Of course, the main influence behind Cleomedes is Posidonius. So what? Anyway, that's what the cosmobiological theory behind the idea that the Earth, that behind the geocentric theory. So no problem need to be raised here about how the Earth, with the status of a point in relation to the size of the cosmos, the Earth is just a point, sends nutriments up to the heavens, as well as to the bodies encompass them. So uh, despite the heavenly bodies being so large in number and size, so Earth is very small, but anyway, it sends nutriments. It feeds. That's a cosmobiological theory. It feeds the other stars, the other planets. But why? That is because the Earth, while minuscule in volume, is vast in power in that virtually alone it comprises most of the substance of the cosmos. Why it comprises most of the substance of the cosmos? Why? Because there's life here, of course. There's no life in Saturn. There's no life in Venus. There's no life in Mars. There's life in Mars. There's life in the Earth. Yeah, the Earth is the center of the world. That's why it is. It says nutriments because there's life here. There's no life in any of other planets. Doesn't matter what this thing Elon Musk says. Like there's just Earth. There's life here. Anyway, I get upset when I think about science nowadays. What these people do with the scientists. Anyway, there's the negationists are worse than the science. That's what. Anyway, but let's not talking about that. So if we imagine it, so what it says here is basically the Earth, since it feeds, since it has more elements, has most of the substance of the, because it's heavier. It's heavier because it attracts and sends nutriments. Now we are going to, by now, the next slide, going to show why the Earth is in the center. Yeah. Why? Because the Earth, now, yeah. Why? Because the Earth is the navel cable of the world. Is the navel. Umbilical cordon of the world. It will be understood this position and this order are all the more true as the sun, essentially hot, is the world heat. And for the world as with an animal, it's to say that the sun, like you have to know, there's a cosmobiological theory. The solar system is an organism, is an animal, and the sun is the heart of the animal, the heart of the universe, because of its movements, its size, and the common course of the surrounding stars. It controls the stars. So it's the heart of our world. It's the heart of the solar system. For inanimate means the life center, that is to say, of the animal as a living thing, is different from the center of the body. So there are two centers. There's the center of mass and the center of energy. The center of energy is the sun, but the center of mass, the material center, is Earth. That's what he's saying here. That's why it's the navel of the world, the navel of this big animal called world. For example, for us who are, as we have said, both humans and alive, the center of life is is always warm and always moving heart. So the heart is the sun, it's always moving. And because of this, the source of the all the faculties of the soul é o centro das faculdades de todas as the faculties of the soul, the cause of life and of all the musings from one place to the other, the source of all desires, of all imagination and intelligence. This is the sun. This is the heart of the world. The center of our body, the material center, is different. It is situated towards the navel, the umbilical cord. Likewise, if we use that, so the center of our body, of the universal world, will be cold and immobile earth. But the center of the world, judging as it were. So anyway, what says here is something, and it's Theodore Miller, and he says, and this is also, like, I'm not going to prove it now, but this is also a Poseidonian fragment. Tyler qualifies it as a Poseidonian fragment. And like, because there is a chain of causation. He tells this Miller, he mentioned that the very chain of causation we see in the fragment 18. So, but the chain of causation is this one. You need to accept that the world is an animal. The world is an animal. So when it was created, this very center, the umbilical cord, is the earth. But the heart of the world is the sun. But with the sun, you have the formal principles. You have the formal principle. With the earth, you have the material principles. But then you have to. Then you are following the philosophical theory that you have to follow. You have to accept, admit both principles in your theory. Just one principle, it doesn't work. Just the scientists, the limited scientists, use just the kinematic principles, just the sun principle. But you have to take into consideration also the material principle, the fact that the earth it sends nutriments to the world, to the stars, to the planets, because it is the umbilical cordon. It's a material center of the world. So that's what. So the point is, this is the cosmological theory of the Stoics in the first and second century, the first century BC, up to the second century AD. This cosmobiological theory, you have two centers. You have in the world, you have the earth is a material center, and you have the sun with sort of the formal center. Earth is the navel of the world, and the sun is the heart of the world. Only when you accept there's two principles, only you accept that any valid philosophy had to take into consideration both principles and not only one, then you are in the right track. And that's what I had to say today. Hello?
Many thanks, Eduardo.
Yeah.
Fantastic
Anyway,
presentation.
you can ask.
Poseidon.
You can ask in Portuguese. That's fine.
Yeah, but
Anyway,
Joelson.
I was quick, but I have answer for everything.
Yeah, Nelson has a
Yes.
question in English. You said the first principles are a philosopher's matter. At the time, at that time, what was the importance of this knowledge of the universe?
Yeah, no, so good, good. So Joel, so it works like that. That's what is said in that fragment 18. It says that the scientists or the astronomers, they just take into consideration the kinematic properties, extrinsic properties, or formal properties. That is, they just take into consideration the formal principle, just a formal principle. It's what's that? That's Platonic. This is Platonic. It's basic Platonism. That's where and when you like in Simplicius, you find that fragment, the Posidonian fragment, exactly when in chapter in book two chapter two, when Aristotle is criticizing Plato because he just takes into consideration formal properties. But the problem with Aristotle is that he says something, he does something else. He as well just take into consideration formal properties. You know that the matter is just always obeys. Like matter is just a take the starting point, but form does everything. You know what I mean? Like, and the point is, you have to take both principles. You have to material principle. You have to take into consideration that the elements that the Earth it's Earth intuitively is in the center. You can't ignore it. Did you get it somehow? And the scientists. But the point is, anyway, what I said it's very interesting. In metaphysics too, Aristotle again, he criticizes science. There's always eternal regress in science. Why? Because they don't have principles. In science then, in science now, they don't have principles. They don't have starting points. There's always eternal regress. So, all right, the world started with the Big Bang. And what came before? What came
Mhm.
before? What are they? Yeah, they don't. That's the point. The philosopher the philosopher is prior to the scientist because he's got principles. That's what you read in metaphysics too, and that's true. It makes sense. It makes good sense for me. Say, Joel.
Okay, let me put a question. Uh,
Uh,
what's the role of the four elements in all this? Can you explain again?
good,
Because
good. Yeah, yeah. This
you,
well, oh, you're my friend. Oh, all right. This is up to, and I believe that I believe I'm nearly pretty sure that the material principle are the elements. That's the fact. The undeniable fact is that Earth moves to the center. So, like, doesn't matter what you see, what the telescope shows you. Intuitively, like that's the material thing that's let's say irrational, something like irrational, but Earth moves to the center, and fire moves to and fire goes up to the top. That's right, that undeniable material principles. You have to integrate it in your theory. That's why the Earth's in the center. It has to be there somehow. Right? It's there because the navel of the world. É o cordão umbilical, né? It sends nutrients to the world. It feeds the world. There's the cosmobiological theory.
oh,
Something I believe that. I'm not pretty sure, but I think it's that.
yeah,
I think
and
it's something like that.
and how is the cosmogony, Posidonius cosmogony linked
The cosmogony.
with it?
It's a cosmogony. You know where's Poseidon's cosmogony? It's in Astronomica. It's in Astronomica. Book one. From there, like something, it's just a Pythagorean. It's a Pythagorean. There's a Pythagorean starts in the middle, the very center, like after that, there's the eternal, the cyclic conflagration, and then fire starts at the very center, because everything comes from the bottom to the top. It's grassroots. It's bottom up. That's the point. That's very important. It's bottom up. Every cosmogony is bottom up. Then from the center goes to the very top, and from the very top it creates the world. But that's what's in the Astronomical. But this is Pythagorean. This is Pythagorean. The fact that the important bit is the parts again. The parts are prior to the whole. There is a center, and the center is absolute center. It's a sort of absolute center. It's a spatial center. It's a spatial. You know where you understand, where you read it. Philoponus knows everything, and all right, his pleasure. He says that his theory, like in the 5th century, 6th century AD. No, it's my theory. Of course, it's not his theory. Everybody knows. Simplicius says Philoponus is a great liar. Everybody says no, it's my theory. Of course, not his theory. It's Pythagorean theory. He was being worked out by many different layers of Pythagoreans, like Philolaus and Eudoxus, and Posidonius contributes as well. And like it's a sort of school, and like it was integrated in Stoicism as well. It was integrated in Stoicism, like Posidonius integrated Pythagorean into Stoicism. That's all right. That's my thought. I can prove it. Anyway, it's provable.
I do believe it in you. But and how about Equipirosis?
Equipirosis, like it's like that's the end of the world. That's the cyclical conflagration. It goes up to a point. Everybody goes into flames, and then like flames, and this very Cleanthes has very good, excellent fragment about that, and I think Posidonius would follow him. The important bit is there's always life. There's a difference between Cleanthes and Chrysippus. Chrysippus believes that there's a point, it's just a flash, and then it's sort of pure matter. And there's a dualism there, in the sense that then the pneuma, fire, just he forges the world from this sort of this vacuum, which is the passive principle. And he would follow. That's a problem with the early Stoics. They are sort of Platonic. They just have a sort of they have the active power that basically does everything. This is the wrong thing. The Pythagorean message, which Posidonius follow, is both powers are important. Like, live with that. All right, I'll tell you, the devil is as powerful as God. Something like that. Something like that.
The body is as powerful as the soul.
No, the devil is as powerful as God.
Oh, fantastic. And
that this is a Christian interpretation, because the material is not bad.
Yeah,
the
sure.
material is like it's there. It's the principle of alternation.
The source of passional movements, as Posidonius says.
Yeah, exactly.
Kinematical.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They irrational propensities, like.
Exactly. All our appetites and our thymoides and our epigeneticon. These capacities are body capacities. And just one more question. It's always a pleasure to have you, because you give us such a lecture.
No, the good point, I came here. I don't have to introduce Posidonius. I don't I can go straight to the.
But
Say.
I would like to ask about Posidonius. In his time, how could his age, uh, how could his age make possible a man like him?
How could what? Say it again, sir.
How a man like him emerged in that
Yeah,
age?
because let's be. This is like this is the apex of civilization. Like we live the time of Cicero. That's the time Virgil was born in. Then, like that's the top of Roman civilization, isn't it? The Sallust and that's Caesar. Like Caesar, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's sort of.
Pompey.
It's not
Yeah.
sort of the it's not the Renaissance, isn't it? There's a Renaissance of Roman times. Now it's like the age of Pericles in
Yeah.
the century of Pericles in Greece. It's that's the apex of Roman civilization. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, like you said, you had Caesar, you had Cicero, you have Sallust, you have Virgil, you're going to have Horace. Then yeah, you have good and you name it, Strabo, like, and you have the whole like, and you have going to have yeah. That's the and in 50 years time you're going to have Jesus, isn't it? You're going to have the world like it's that's a
Virgilius and all the great poets also.
yeah, like that's the golden age of Roman civilization of the Roman world, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still democrat, like there's still republic. Then like it's in 100 years time, there will be just empire, and like the ideas wouldn't be that like the ideas wouldn't be so important as they were. Like you had Catullus, like you have a genius like Catullus. You had Lucretius. You had that
Lucretius. Yeah.
that mother and the Lucre the Epicurean and not mother. I'm not going. I'm not going to abuse Lucretius here.
But Posidonius is like really like a Renaissance man.
Yeah,
He has so many interests in science,
yeah,
art, and sometimes he was measuring the tides in Spain, things like
exactly.
this. Like
Yeah, no,
like a
and the best measurement of the circle of the world circumference is his the
oh
best
yeah,
one.
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's the best one. That's what you find Strabo, like really close to the.
Oh, I
It's
didn't
really
know about it.
close.
Yeah.
But the point is, he was not an eclectic thinker.
Hmm.
He that's what Kidd always that's it what that I learned with Kidd, with the great Professor Ian Kidd, yeah, is that what he didn't like in the German scholarship was that they tend to show Posidonius as an eclectic thinker. Like they had that sort of a horizontal approach. Or these are all these fragments. They look like each other, and they all belong to Posidonius. Né? And Kidd, he was right, completely right. Like Kidd knows everything. I really admire that scholar. But he really taught me that Posidonius first he had a linear approach, a vertical approach, and the principles are the basis of this vertical approach. The sort of this causal nexus, this chain of causation, which is sort of it's Euclidean chain of causation, like starts with the principles, goes to the triangles, then goes to the elements, then goes to the triangles, then go, the line. It's true. It's something like that. That's what you can find in Sextus Empiricus, like you know, it's debate or it's the. I mean, when I publish my article, it's not going to be debatable anymore. I feel, yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
I got some of your papers in English. You put some in Brazilian journals. You can find you that are listeners can find these papers. I will put a link to them and
Good.
downloaded all of them,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I will
I know.
read them
That
next year.
paper I wrote for your Prometheus. That nice
Yeah,
the geography. That nice.
if you consider, I'll make a list of it and put it on my blog So to
Good.
if you think it's fine,
Perfect. Perfect.
okay,
Thank you.
I'll do it.
I
I
know.
need it for my own
I owe you a
consumption.
paper. I had to write you another article. I owe you that. No, it's true. You are. Yeah. You are. You put me in the good hot the lights. Né? So I owe you another article.
You like Fantasia. You are shedding light on everything.
Yeah.
Okay, Eduardo, it's fantastic. I was tired before you begin, but now I am totally refreshed with your lecture.
I
Yeah,
know that's the end of the day. Yeah, I know.
many things. You put a lot of new ideas on my mind. I'm very grateful to you for this. And
Yeah.
so,
Anyway, I'm here for that. Anyway,
oh,
no, I don't look crazy now. It makes some sense. Some of my colleagues or in the department, it's not the philosophy department. It's
mm.
classical letters department. Say, oh, you should go to the mental house. The people from philosophy, they always they consider these sort of ideas, these sort of strange ideas. Yeah, people like there's method then behind it. Yeah.
Okay, Eduardo, many thanks.
Thank you.
And
Well,
the,
yeah,
the, the seminar continues tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow we have Greg Sadler at 10 a.m. Brazilian time.
tá
And
ótimo.
on Friday we have John Sellers at 10 a.m. also. He'll
Excellent,
talk to us.
excellent. I'm going to
And
watch it.
many thanks. I hope
Thank
you
you, Aldo.
still.
Thank you, people.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
André, todo mundo. Tchau, pessoal.
And see you tomorrow.
Marcos. Thank you, Marcos. Boechat is the best. Thank you.
Yeah.